Good morning and welcome to the Three Blind Mice, where we always see it coming.
In our top story today, we have some tragic breaking news, so stick around to hear about the death of Prince Hamlet and many other deaths of royal blood that happened over the past few months.
These deaths all stem from the story of King Hamlet and his misfortunate and mysterious death. From doctor autopsies, we can only discern that he died of heart failure while sunbathing in his backyard.
Now, see, what's more shocking is the quick rebound Queen Gertrude had with the king's brother Claudius. I mean, that's pretty quick.
Yes, and as we all know, that did not go over well with his son, Prince Hamlet.
Well, yeah, can you imagine? I mean, having your mother marry your uncle only a couple weeks after your father's untimely death. Well, rather disturbing in my view.
But to continue with our story, from info we had gathered from the castle guards, King Hamlet's ghost was haunting the royal yards. And when Prince Hamlet got word of this, he went to converse with his father's ghost. That same night, there was an earthquake of about a 6.0 scale in the surrounding area. Strangely, there was no evidence of it damaging the soil though.
Very strange night.
That's way strange. Stick tuned with us and we'll cover the rest of the story on Hamlet. But right now we're going to go to Matthew with the weather. Matthew.
Thank you. As my colleague has said, there was an earthquake in the forest last night. Pretty good earthquake. Strangely, and luckily though, there was no casualties. But strangely, there was no evidence of it actually even occurring, other than local accounts of people saying there was a rumbling in the earth. And also, they swear that they heard swear in a deep and dark raspy voice repeated over and over again. But in other news, as you can see, in Denmark, we're going to have a cold front coming up over here. It's going to cause some random snow, probably a high of 29 degrees and a low of -3 degrees. Stay tuned for the weekly weather report.
Thank you, Matt. After that scary night, Prince Hamlet seemed to have become mentally ill with some maddening trauma. Must have been scared crazy to seeing his dad's ghost.
Or maybe it was just because he was madly in love with Ophelia, and her father Polonius put a restraining order upon Hamlet.
You never tell with these Twitter-pated seasons, but whatever the cause, this madness continued for weeks until Hamlet's old pals, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they came to counsel their old friend. But later, these three musketeers, if you will, I mean, they're pretty cool, if you will, they were ordered to depart Denmark and leave for England. However, we have reports that after interviewing Hamlet's other mate, Horatio, we have discovered that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were sent to kill their old pal, Hamlet, but Hamlet proved to be too clever for them and instead altered the lettered instructions to have his two betrayers killed and returned on the ship back to Denmark.
Tragic. Really tragic. I can't imagine how Hamlet can withstand so much trauma in such a short period of time. And on top of all that, when he returned, Hamlet found his old GF in a casket ready for burial. Supposedly, this madness must have been contagious because days before her suicidal drowning act, she was kept in solitary confinement to her crazy notions.
Yes, well, I think I would go mad too if my boyfriend stabbed my mother to death.
Yeah, and in front of his own mother. Well, we will continue this story right after a word from our sponsors.
I don't always eat cologne, but when I do, I eat eternity.
Eternity for men.
And we're back, thankfully. Thoughts on Hamlet's purpose and intentions of the murder of Polonius are still under investigation.
Meanwhile, Claudius seems to be attempting to deal with some foreign affairs from Norway. Prince Fortinbras is alleged seeking revenge for his father's death, which was caused by the already dead King Hamlet. But although the Norway claim that they will not declare war, who can trust a Norwegian, right?
Indeed. There seems to be no time for mourning within the royal court, though, because it appears that a duel between Hamlet and Ophelia's brother Laertes, who's back from college to mourn the death of his father and now his sister, was soon arranged.
This day of the duel is probably the most tragic of them all. 5 people were killed that day in the royal court where the duel took place. The count that follows is from the lone surviving witness, Horatio.
Yes, it was. Laertes was a clear favorite of the night. Not many onlookers were rooting for the underdog Hamlet. Despite this, Hamlet was easily winning the duel. Then, a strange thing happened. Laertes took a cheap shot and cut Hamlet's shoulder just before the 3rd round. The intense duel continued where both the competitors demonstrated their top skill. Hamlet swiped Laertes with his own sword and knocked him over the 2nd floor railing, though, and he promptly hit the tiled floor below.
Alright, now listen, audience, see if you can keep up with this. This is where it gets pretty intense and crazy. Alright, so immediately after, the queen was the first to die. In her dying words, she proclaimed that the cup of wine from the king she drank was poison. Laertes confessed that the king was to blame, but the king's plot had always been to kill Hamlet because Hamlet was a threat to the king since Hamlet discovered that the ghost of Claudius poisoned King Hamlet during his nap time. Therefore, King Claudius not only poisoned the Hamlet's cup to drink, but also gave to Laertes, who was also part of the scheme in hopes of revenging his dead father and sister, a sharp rather than blunt sword that was poisoned at the tip. Woo!
Hamlet was appalled and furious at the king, and proceeded to showcase his high school track and field skills with a javelin throw to impale the king and pin him to his throne with his fencing sword from a good 30 yards away. I guess he figured the impalement wasn't enough to kill the king, so he also cut down the chandelier that swung from the ceiling and crashed into the king. But wait, Hamlet wasn't done yet. He then took the poisoned cup of wine and splashed his finger within and vigorously forced the liquid down the king's throat. Quite a gruesome scene at this point. Then, observing servant Osric was stabbed by the ambush attack of Fortinbras and his army. Army that was taking place during the distracting duel.
I can't imagine the damage expenses on that scene. Meanwhile, Horatio just stood there appalled at all the death that had just occurred in like a few minutes. First the Queen, second Laertes, then third Hamlet by the poisoned sword, and fourth poor innocent Osric.
It's always sad when people get affected by these things when they're not even really part of it. But we'll continue more later. Right now we're going to go John, who is live on the scene. John, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And we're here on the scene of Hamlet's death. What do you think of Hamlet's horrible death?
About time that cruise man died.
Well, that's enough of that. Back to you, Benji.
Thank you. Man, I love these people. They always are so interactive and entertaining. We got news that Fortinbras was quite surprised to walk into the throne so easily. I mean, all of his enemies killed by themselves. He claimed the throne, and in doing so, proved that the consequences of internal government can affect you pretty seriously.
Wow, what a series of unfortunate events. Well, let's go to Tom with our sports.
As of recent, fencing has taken a toll on both their fans and their numbers, leaving arenas empty and academies low on fundraising. But on the other hand, jousting, for some reason, has taken a large rise in fans. Kids are even in their backyards with dangerous lances running around. But who can care when you got Jimmy that's 10 years old and just prodigy on his way to fame? That would be it for the sports. Back to the broadcast.
Thank you. That would conclude our broadcast tonight. Thanks for tuning in, and join us next time when we cover the romantic stories of Romeo and Juliet. Have a good day.
All right, very good. Thanks, everybody.